The battlefield was silent. Wreckage drifted through the void, broken pieces of enemy warships glowing faintly as they tumbled into the darkness. Fires flickered on shattered hulls, slowly fading as the cold of space swallowed them. What had once been a fleet feared by the galaxy was now nothing more than scattered debris. The predators who had brought entire empires to their knees had been crushed, utterly, completely, by the Deathworlders. For a long moment, no one spoke. The alien survivors on their stations and colonies stared at their screens in disbelief. They had expected a battle that would drag on for weeks, maybe months. Instead, the humans had ended it in a single, decisive storm. On the council station, the elder who had first sent the desperate plea leaned heavily on his staff. His eyes shimmered with tears, though his face carried no smile. "It is over," he whispered. "The hunters are gone." But another counselor shook his head, voice trembling. "No, it has only begun. The galaxy has changed forever. Nothing will ever be the same again." He was right. Word of the battle spread faster than light. Across the stars, refugees carried the tale. Smugglers repeated it in shadowed cantinas. Merchants whispered it in marketplaces. Even broken fleets hiding in distant systems heard the story. The Deathworlder fleet had arrived, and the predators had fled. For some, the story brought hope. Civilizations that had been silent for fear of being destroyed now dared to speak again. Colonies in hiding opened their channels, believing that survival was possible. Entire species whispered prayers of thanks to humanity, calling them saviors, protectors, even angels of vengeance. But for others, the story brought only fear. The same whispers repeated again and again. If humanity could destroy the predators, what else could they destroy? Some rulers trembled, knowing their empires had survived only because humanity had chosen not to look their way. The galaxy began to understand that the Deathworlders were no longer a rumor or a distant power. They were here, they were awake, and they were unstoppable. On the flagship Indomitable, the human commander stood before his officers, his voice steady but heavy with meaning. "We have answered the call. The enemy is broken, but this is not the end. They will return, or others like them will rise. When that day comes, humanity will be ready." The officers saluted. None of them spoke of conquest. None of them spoke of glory. They fought because someone had cried for help, and because Deathworlders never ignored a challenge. Among the alien survivors, respect began to grow. They saw humanity not only as destroyers but as guardians who carried both fury and purpose. Yet deep inside, every species understood the cost. Humanity had shown their power, and power always carried a shadow. The galaxy would never again look at Earth the same way. The elder gathered the young survivors in the council chamber. His voice carried across the station as he spoke the truth that would be remembered for generations. "We called for help. We expected death. Instead, we saw hope born in fire. The Deathworlders did not come for conquest. They came because we asked. Let no one ever forget what they did here." The children listened, their wide eyes filled with both fear and admiration. They would grow up telling the tale of the day humanity's fleet answered, and their children after them would tell it again. The story would never fade. On distant worlds, alien historians recorded the battle, calling it the Day of Fire. Others named it the Silence Shattered. But among humans, it would be remembered simply as the response. For humanity did not see themselves as saviors. They saw themselves as fighters who could not ignore the cry of another. As the human fleet prepared to depart, their ships turned slowly, their shadows stretching once more across the stars. The survivors watched them go, hearts heavy with gratitude and unease. The enemy was gone, but the presence of the Deathworlders lingered like thunder after a storm. The final message from the Indomitable echoed across the channels, steady and unshaken. "You are not alone. Remember that." And then, like ghosts, the fleet vanished back into the void, leaving silence behind. But it was not the silence of fear anymore. It was the silence of change. The galaxy would never forget the day aliens cried out for help, and humanity's deadliest fleet responded. Because on that day, the stars themselves learned a new truth. When Deathworlders moved, the universe trembled. The galaxy had mocked Earth long enough. But mocking was not enough for the proud empires. They wanted to crush the rumor forever. They wanted the humans to kneel, to admit their weakness in front of the stars. And so, a challenge was sent. It was simple, brutal, and arrogant. If humanity truly had such a warship, let them bring it forward. If not, they would be punished with fire and chains. Alien councils declared this message across every broadcast channel. The leaders of the great empires stood proud, smiling as they mocked. Their words echoed across the stars. Humanity hides behind lies. Their warship is nothing but a ghost story. Let them prove us wrong, or we will end them. And so the fleets began to gather. From the cold edges of the Orion Arm, ships of the Kral Dominion roared toward human space. From the blazing cores of the Veari Empire, heavy cruisers armed with plasma cannons joined the armada. From the misty worlds of the Thrin Ascendancy came stealth frigates, their hulls cloaked in black. One by one, the mighty powers of the galaxy united, not in peace but in arrogance. Their fleet was massive, thousands of ships, engines burning bright like stars, weapons locked and ready. They believed it would not even be a war, it would be a lesson that humans were weak, a lesson that Earth's voice meant nothing in the galaxy. The admirals of the alien fleet gave speeches, their voices full of laughter. They mocked Earth in every word. We will crush this myth and broadcast the truth to every corner of the galaxy. Soldiers shouted in joy, singing songs of victory before a single shot had even been fired. To them, this was not war. This was entertainment, a theater where Earth would play the role of the fool. But on Earth, there was no laughter. There were no songs. Instead, there was silence. A heavy, tense silence that spread from the highest command rooms to the smallest homes. Humanity did not mock. They did not boast. They prepared. In underground bunkers, commanders looked at the stars with hard eyes. In orbital stations, engineers worked day and night, their hands trembling as they touched the controls of weapons no alien had ever seen. In hidden shipyards, something slept, a giant, silent shadow that none outside Earth had ever witnessed. Civilians on Earth stared at the sky, waiting. Mothers held their children close. Fathers stood by screens that showed the alien fleet advancing, covering the night with their countless lights. The world braced itself for fire, but no one begged. No one surrendered. Humanity stood firm, and yet they remained silent. No response to the alien challenge, no proud broadcast, no warnings. To the galaxy, this silence was proof of weakness. Proof that the warship was not real. Proof that Earth was nothing but a liar. In alien taverns, laughter grew louder. Traders gambled on how long it would take for the fleet to burn Earth. Soldiers boasted about the spoils they would take. Children of alien empires mocked human children, saying they would soon serve as slaves. The entire galaxy seemed united in its arrogance. But in the silence of Earth, something stirred. Deep in secret chambers, codes were entered. Sealed doors opened. Power surged through hidden engines, lighting up controls that had been dark for years. A quiet hum began to rise, like the sound of a storm building in the distance. Still, the alien fleet pressed forward, confident and blind. Their ships entered human space one after another, covering the dark sky like a swarm of predators. Their weapons glowed, their shields shimmered, their commanders laughed. They broadcast once more. "Show us your warship, humans, or perish beneath our fire." But Earth remained silent. The galaxy waited for surrender. The aliens waited for panic. Yet neither came. Instead, there was only tension, growing like a storm that refused to break. And somewhere, unseen by alien eyes, a shadow moved in the void. The alien fleet was now in human space. Thousands of ships stretching across the dark void like a wall of fire and steel. Their engines burned bright, their weapons charged, their shields glowing. To the galaxy, This was the greatest show of power in history. To the alien empires, this was a day of triumph before the first shot was even fired. Broadcasts reached every corner of the stars. Alien reporters spoke with laughter in their voices. The humans will finally be humbled today. Their myth will be shattered. Their silence will end. Children of alien worlds gathered around screens. Soldiers in orbit shouted victory songs, their voices echoing in the halls of their ships. The galaxy was ready to witness Earth's end. But then the signals began. At first they were faint. Strange pulses, irregular and sharp, flickered across the fleet's sensors. Alien technicians frowned. They checked their screens, thinking it was interference. But the signals kept coming. A low hum, almost like a heartbeat, echoed across the comm channels. It was steady, powerful, and unlike anything they had seen before. Admirals ordered scans, but no explanation came. The energy reading was impossible. It was too high, too concentrated, too precise, yet nothing could be seen. Space was empty. The humans remained silent. The alien commanders mocked once more, trying to calm their own fear. It is nothing, just tricks. Human lies. And then the shadow appeared. Out of the dark void, something massive began to emerge. At first, it was only a shape. Too large to be measured, too silent to be real. It moved slowly with the weight of a mountain drifting through the stars. Its hull reflected no light, swallowing the glow of the alien ships around it. The alien fleet froze. Sensors screamed as they tried to lock onto the object. Numbers flooded the screens. The readings broke limits, systems failing to understand. The size, the energy, the power. Soldiers who had laughed minutes ago now sat silent, their mouths open, their eyes wide. Admirals gripped their chairs, feeling their pride crack under the weight of fear. And then, the galaxy saw it. The human warship. It was real, shaped like a blade. Its sharp edges cut through the void as if space itself was afraid to touch it. Its massive hull glowed faintly with hidden energy, alive with silent fire. Every line of its design spoke of death, of precision, of purpose. It did not move like a ship. It moved like a predator. For a long moment, the galaxy was silent. Every broadcast stopped. Every reporter choked on their words. Across alien worlds, laughter turned into gasps. Children who had mocked fell quiet. The myth they had laughed at stood before them, real and terrifying. The alien admirals tried to speak, their voices shaking. It cannot be real. But their soldiers already knew. The warship was no myth. It was the end. The ship made no sound, no threats, no speeches. Only its presence filled the void with dread. Even in silence, it spoke louder than any words. It was a warning. It was a promise. The alien fleet moved into formation, trying to hide their fear with discipline. Weapons charged, shields raised, engines roared. Yet every captain knew the truth. They were not the hunters anymore. They were the prey. And still, the humans said nothing. No broadcast. No challenge, only silence, a silence heavier than any weapon. Across the galaxy, entire worlds watched, their breaths held. The myth had become real, the laughter had become fear, and the silence of Earth was about to break. The galaxy had waited for laughter, for surrender, for weakness. But what they saw instead froze their hearts. The human warship floated before the alien fleet like a silent blade. No sound, no message, no plea. It simply existed, and its existence was enough to turn arrogance into fear. The alien admirals shouted orders. Form attack lines, surround it, fire at will. Thousands of ships moved into formation, their engines burning bright, their weapons glowing like suns. To the galaxy watching, it looked like a storm about to swallow a single ship. A storm so vast, no vessel could survive it. And then the storm began. Beams of plasma, waves of missiles, torrents of energy fire lit up the void. Alien fleets poured, everything they had into the silence. The stars themselves seemed to vanish under the flood of weapons. Viewers across the galaxy cheered, believing this was the end of the human myth. But when the light cleared, the warship still stood. Untouched. Unbroken. Not even a scratch marked its hull. Shock spread through the alien fleets. Soldiers stared at their screens in disbelief. Commanders shouted, demanding answers from their engineers. But the engineers only shook their heads. Their shields are beyond anything we've seen. And then the warship moved. It was slow, precise, and terrifying. No wasted motion, no panic, no rush. Like a predator that knew it, had already won. The alien admirals screamed for their fleets to regroup. But it was too late. The warship's weapons came alive. A single blast of light erupted from its hull, brighter than a star. It was not loud. It was not wild. It was clean, focused, and absolute. When it struck, an entire wing of enemy ships vanished. Hundreds of vessels gone in silence, erased from existence in less than a heartbeat. The galaxy gasped. Soldiers aboard. Alien ships felt their courage drain away. Admirals who had laughed now gripped their chairs with white knuckles, unable to speak. The myth had not only become real, it had become unstoppable. Again, the warship fired. Another fleet cluster shattered. Alien screams filled the comms. Ships collided as panicked pilots tried to flee. The proud formations of the mighty empires dissolved into chaos. The warship did not chase. It did not roar. It simply struck, one blow after another, each precise, each deadly, each impossible to resist. Alien weapons kept firing, but they did nothing. Their missiles exploded harmlessly against invisible barriers. Their plasma cannons fizzled like sparks against a storm. Their stealth frigates, once invisible, were torn apart before they could even hide. Every secret weapon of the galaxy was revealed to be useless. Across alien worlds, silence fell. Citizens who had mocked humans minutes ago now whispered in fear. Children clung to their parents. Leaders in their grand halls sat frozen, their confidence shattered. The galaxy that had mocked Earth was now watching the death of its pride. On Earth, the people did not cheer. They watched in silence, their eyes fixed on the screens, their hearts heavy. They had known this day would come, they had known the warship would awaken. But even they felt the weight of its power. Back in orbit, the alien fleet broke. Ships fled in every direction, commanders abandoning their posts, soldiers begging for retreat. But the warship did not chase them. It did not need to. The message was already written in fire and wreckage. One by one, the galaxy's strongest fleets were erased, and through it all, the human warship remained silent. The void was quiet. The alien fleet, once a wall of fire and steel, was now nothing but wreckage drifting across the black sky. Thousands of ships had entered human space, proud and laughing. Now only fragments remained, burning hulls, shattered wings, broken engines tumbling like dead stars. The human warship floated alone among the ruins. Its black hull glowed faintly, silent and cold. Not a scratch touched its surface. To the galaxy, it looked less like a ship and more like a god of war, a shadow that no weapon could harm. For long moments, no one spoke. Across alien command centers, across councils, across homes and markets where billions watched the broadcast, silence ruled. The same mouths that had laughed at Earth hours ago could now only hang open in fear. And then the whispers began. It was real. The humans did it. The myth was true. In alien palaces, rulers trembled. They had mocked humanity, sent their fleets in arrogance, and now their might was ash. Generals who had once boasted of easy victory now stood frozen, unable to explain how thousands of ships had been erased by one. Soldiers who had sung songs of triumph were silent, their voices broken. Across the galaxy, entire worlds felt a chill. The warship was no longer a rumor. It was a warning, a shadow that would never be forgotten. On Earth, the people did not cheer. They did not celebrate. They only watched the silence. They had always known the warship was not built for glory, but for survival. Humanity had never asked for this fight. But when the galaxy mocked, when the galaxy threatened, they had answered. And now, the answer drifted in orbit for all to see. wreckage of the proud empires that once ruled the stars. The warship did not pursue the survivors. It did not speak, did not broadcast victory. It simply turned, engines glowing faintly, and vanished back into the void. The Predator had made its point. It no longer needed to stay. The galaxy would never forget that silence. No threats, no promises. Only the cold, terrifying truth. Humanity did not need to shout. Humanity did not need to prove. The warship had spoken in fire, and its voice was eternal. From that day, the mocking stopped. The laughter ended. Where once aliens called the warship a lie, they now whispered its name in fear. Where once they mocked Earth as weak, they now watched Earth in silence, careful not to provoke. The myth had become real, and reality had burned the arrogance of empires to ash. The galaxy was never the same again.